Good afternoon. After the break, I would like to welcome everybody and everyone who's watching us to the legal session of the conference. My name is Michał Sznycer, and I am a partner and an attorney at law at MGS Law. I am responsible for the energy regulatory area at the office. I'm also a leader and a team member of the hydrogen cluster regulatory and legal team that has been assessing the legal barriers within the Polish legal framework with hydrogen usage, and also a member of Pracodawcy Pomorza Employees Organization and Renewable Energy Sources Council at Leviathan. I would like to welcome my guests today. I would like to welcome Mr. Alexandru Florestein, who's a legal and project manager at Hydrogen Europe. I would like to welcome Ms. Ewa Mazur, who's head of Hydrogen Economy and Innovation Unit at Ministry of Climate, Polish Ministry of Climate. Hello, nice to meet you. Nice to see you. And I would like to welcome Professor Jakub Kupecki, who's head of Center for Hydrogen Technologies at the Institute of Power Engineering and the head of Department of High Temperature Electrochemical Processes. Is that correct? That's quite long. Well, today we will try to address one of the main issues that has been addressed during the whole conference about the legal framework of the hydrogen usage, and also some legal mechanisms that would provide us with certain ease of use of hydrogen in the future. We are currently experiencing a situation in which hydrogen has been described as a pivotal role in the changing environment of climate policy within the European Union. It is a vector of renewable energy sources that could change a lot within its usage. It is also there are also a lot of technical barriers that are being addressed by the innovation side of the industry, but also has to be addressed by the regulatory authorities and by the industry itself. There is also an issue with hydrogen as a source of energy within the so popular electromobility segment of the industry. So, Alexandru, I would like to address a few issues. Well, you're a member of Hydrogen Europe, which represents the European industry associations and members who are active in the hydrogen and fuel cell sector. The fuel cells and hydrogen joint undertaking, which is combining all those associations, is also cooperating with European Clean Hydrogen Alliance, which has quite recently published a strategy for climate neutral Europe with a lot of hydrogen usage, I would say. What would you be able to tell us about your cooperation within the European Commission and European associations that are working on hydrogen usage? Alexandru.
All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. It's really a pleasure to see the hydrogen field, the clean hydrogen field, take such an important role in Poland. I'm very happy to see this because I think uh, an energy transition cannot happen without economic growth, and it cannot happen by leaving anyone behind. And one of the things that investment in hydrogen technology does is decouples the discussion or the trade-off between having a decarbonized society on one side and economic wealth on the other. So we no longer have to have a trade-off between those two. We can achieve carbon neutrality whilst continuing to live our lives and not have to go back to living like 400 years ago. So I think that's something very good that can be observed. Carbon neutrality, which I know is a hot potato in Poland, cannot be achieved without hydrogen. And achieving carbon neutrality with hydrogen is much easier. And it's actually something that can be done. Now, to go back to your question about the interactions between the different associations, between the European Commission and the hydrogen sector, I think I want to take a step back and think about what Hydrogen Europe is and what hydrogen is. I know you've had speakers from an association before, and they probably described the association, but I want to stress the point again that hydrogen is extremely versatile. It can mean very different things to very different people, and it can achieve different things, which is why we're so proud in our association to have and to represent companies from every single part of the hydrogen value chain, from the production of renewable energy, so the primary energy, to the production of hydrogen as a molecule, to the transportation and distribution, to its re-electrification, to its use in energy in the different sectors. And this is how anybody should think about hydrogen when designing policies. It should think from a system perspective. How can hydrogen help create the most efficient decarbonized system? And then work with policies that achieve that. That brings me to your question. That is exactly how we work at EU level. We try to include everyone in the discussion to make sure that we have a system based on clean hydrogen that works for all the parts of the industry, from the producers of the primary energy to the consumers of energy that need to use it to decarbonize their own activities. And I think that kind of thinking is quite well reflected in the EU Green Deal, in the energy system integration package, in the EU hydrogen strategy, and in our way of working at EU level. And hopefully, I think you're replicating this in Poland with the work of the cluster and all the other initiatives that are happening.
It's very good that you've mentioned the European Green Deal, since my second question actually is connected with the program. And I would like to quote Franz Timmermans, who's first vice president of the European Commission, who said that, "I see a pivotal role for clean hydrogen. It is an area where Europe is still leading. Why not extend the lead on something that could be one of the most important solutions on clean energy?" And also the European Commission have provided us with the framework, with the timeline on how the European Green Deal will be introduced. And hydrogen has been one of the major items of it. It is a major issue right now. Some say that there is a hype on hydrogen right now. I mean, every country is now trying to address this process. We've seen Germany with which published its hydrogen strategy. The question regarding how this will develop is also a question regarding the support system, the legal framework for support system of producing green hydrogen. But we know that it will take some time, and according to the hydrogen strategy for a climate neutral Europe, we will try to achieve this 100% green hydrogen production at 2030, and at least that's the plan. And would you describe and would you provide us with some information on the Certify project and the issuance of the guarantees of origin for hydrogen? We know that our target is to have 100% green hydrogen being produced in Europe. But as far as I understand, to achieve that, we will have to go through some time and some process. And can you tell me whether there are only green guarantees of origin being issued, or have you ever heard of the so-called gray or blue ones also being traded? Yeah. And maybe to our listeners, just one additional sentence: the guarantees of origin, they are a major part of the support system for renewables, as they have been for quite some time, and they're also being issued and used in Poland. But Alexandru, could you give us some insight into this program, into this process?
I will be more than happy to. Very more than happy to. But I think I need to make a small step backwards, okay, and put the guarantees of origin within an important context. Because what we are talking about here, and this is especially relevant for all countries, is that we are building a market for a new decarbonized energy vector, exactly like you've described it. So you have to talk about building the market for hydrogen as a decarbonized energy vector in general before you talk about a market for guarantees of origin for both renewable and low carbon. To already start asking your question, yes, of course, there's both renewable guarantees of origin and low carbon guarantees of origin and certified, but I will get to that. You mentioned the European hydrogen strategies. Right now, in 2018, I think the consumption of hydrogen in Europe was 8.3, close to 9 million metric tons. Almost all of it was met by fossil-based hydrogen or by H2 byproduct. Now, what the hydrogen strategy foresees that by 2030, we will be producing 10 million metric tons of renewable hydrogen annually in the EU. We'll have a electrolyzer capacity of 40 gigawatts and an additional 40 gigawatts in the EU's neighborhood. Now, this is actually more than twice the current consumption of hydrogen in the EU, because the current fossil H2 production capacity will not disappear within a decade. We are talking about building a new dedicated market for renewable hydrogen that will substitute other fossil fuels. It will substitute coal in the steel sector, diesel whenever it's relevant, kerosene in the aviation sector. So we're talking about a new market on top of the existing one, as well as talking about the gradual replacement of the current hydrogen consumption with renewable and low carbon hydrogen. So we're talking about two different pathways. And these are two different policy objectives in different areas, and they require different instruments. So let me go a little bit through them. So first, you need to stimulate supply. Now, it's a good start to stimulate supply. You want to make it easier to produce renewable and low carbon hydrogen. So what do we have in this context? We have the Next Generation EU program, the different recovery and resilience plans that will be built, the Just Transition Fund, which is extremely relevant for Poland, the Invest EU program, the Innovation and the Modernization Fund. All of these will likely support, among other things, the production of renewable hydrogen. They will help de-risk investments. If anybody wants to do more than that at national level, you have other instruments such as carbon contracts for difference, feed-in tariffs, the reduction of fees for electrolyzers when using the grid. And all these different instruments help reduce or eliminate funding gaps between renewable and fossil-based hydrogen. Now, stimulating supply is probably not enough, and you have to stimulate demand as well. And stimulating demand usually means targets and mandates. And some people might not like them, but they work. And if you look at the Renewable Energy Directive, I'm not going to say anything about the 14% level, which we believe is too small. It's not ambitious enough. But if we study it as an instrument, it creates a mandate for renewable energy, a mandate that can be met with electricity, biofuels, hydrogen, can be met with hydrogen as a fuel directly for fuel cell electric vehicles or in the production of other conventional fuels. So it creates a market. And that market needs to be then serviced by a number of instruments. And this is where I get to my third point about the elimination of regulatory barriers and the creation of a stable, predictable regulatory framework. Only at this point do we start talking about guarantees of origin, because we have to explain what we can do with a guarantee of origin and what we cannot do, or what it can't do. So it's just a disclosure mechanism. It has the single function of showing to a final consumer that a given share of energy was produced from renewable sources. That's all it can do. And its most important characteristic is that it can be transferred independently from the energy to which it relates. This is also known as a book and claim system. Yeah. So basically, you allow the system to separate your physical movement of the product with its attributes, and you allow to trade them separately. Now, this is amazing for the market, because then you allow the consumers that are willing and able to pay more for the desired attributes to do so without the extra costs of physically delivering that product to him or her. You allow to put your production where it most makes economic sense and your consumption to take place where it's needed. Now, I want to say one thing about this. In order for this system to be credible, the only argument that can justify a book and claim geosystem is that it should make no difference who claims the benefit of the use of the attribute. So whether it's the consumer of the real physical product or the consumer of the product to which the attribute was attached, the climate impact has to be the same. And if we don't have this, we don't have a credible geosystem. I'm not speaking about legality, I'm speaking about credibility. So
thank you. I think the system has proven in many times to be successful, and stimulating supply and demand with deregulation of certain issues, and eliminating legal barriers and sometimes also fiscal barriers. We've seen quite a lot good examples, including Poland. The rapid development of photovoltaics, and especially small-scale photovoltaics, we've seen during the last 4 years, is also a part is also due to those changes. This wouldn't happen without those elements that we've described. And Alexandru, I would like to thank you for your input. I would now address. I would move on with questions regarding our home regulatory issues, and I would like to ask Eva Mazur a few questions, especially what are the plans for the Ministry of Climate to extend the use of hydrogen within well, quite recent plans for decarbonization and supporting the whole energy sector, I would say, because it is a major piece of the whole puzzle, right? So what are the plans for the hydrogen usage, and what are the plans for the targets that will be placed within Ministry of Climate? Eva.
Thank you for passing me the floor for this very pertinent questions. But most of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this panel and for providing such a great platform of discussion that we have today. When it comes to the plans of the Polish government related to hydrogen economy, they are based on, I would say we have three main pillars. We would like to support the use of hydrogen in electricity sector, in industry, and in transport. Although well, this is a very big question, and there is a lot of challenges to be faced, both political challenges and regulatory challenges. As for now, when it comes to legislation and market regulation, we are very much on this basic ground of laying this very necessary legislation that will allow industry to develop. So our very first legislative work is already ongoing. We are recasting our alternative fuels law. So the project bill will introduce a legal basis that will allow us to issue this very technical regulations that will simply lay down things related to technical properties of refueling stations. We don't have it now. Yes. We have certain provisions that obviously can be used by the market, as it's not forbidden to build a refueling station, although we need to fill this void. And it is a challenge to produce highly technical legislation. Therefore, we will really count on the industry's support and involvement in the process. From my own experience, I can really tell that this moment when, from the point where we publish a bill or regulation and we think, okay, it's decent, we can publish it for consultation, till the end, it goes all along an amazing transformation and makes the bill so much better if industry is involved. So this is what we're doing now. We hope, apart from this alternative fuels bill, we're also working on another one that concerns fuel quality. It's quite important for our transport, not even alternative one, but the regular fuels quality, to include there for the first time hydrogen. So there will be a regulation setting standards for hydrogen used in transport when it comes to the quality of the fuel. Both of these things we are aiming to achieve by the end of the year, I mean the bills. When it comes to these technical regulations, it will be early next year, we hope. So the enabling hydrogen transport to set off is our first objective. Then we will move to more to this other uses of hydrogen and regulatory framework that relate to them, meaning first next year we're planning to create the very foundation for the functioning of the hydrogen market, so as to remove the most difficult barriers to market development and to clarify interpretation of some provisions that are already in place. Many market players are asking themselves, do we actually have, is hydrogen-related activity kind of a licensed activities under our energy bill? Or is it not? This is a big question that we are also trying to answer together with our regulatory authority. So there is a dialogue between us, the lawmaker, and the regulator on whether this is something you need to have a license for or not. And next year, the first stage of the market regulations will concern these very basic problems. And in parallel, we will also focus quite a lot of effort on negotiating and working on the European regulations that will arrive. Some of the proposals will come this year, more will be published by the Commission next year. And in parallel, when negotiating and taking part in creating the European framework, we will also work on the national framework that will be more in-depth than this just very basic one. Sorry.
No, I'm quite happy that you address similar issues that we have mapped last year, because over 1.5 years between 2018 and the end of 2019, we have as a team of specialists within the hydrogen clusters, we have mapped major issues and major barriers within the Polish law, and we have addressed them in a our way, internal way, I would say, how to deal with them and how to change them. And maybe we'd be quite happy to share our thoughts with you, since there will be there must be some change within the legal framework, right? And one of those, which we are all, I think, waiting for, and this is something that Alexandru mentioned actually, is the implementation of the RED II directive, of the Renewables Energy Directive. I know that we still have some time. I think it's the end of June 2021, but the directive particularly mentions the guarantees of origin that would support the hydrogen production, the green hydrogen production, right? So this is one issue. One thing that I would like to ask you: do you know? Would you be able to share some information about how this proceeds within the Ministry of Climate?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, I specifically consulted my colleagues from our renewables department, and now I can only share this very concept, a concept that is on a very internal part of work. And the concept that will not be surprising for you, because as we are bound to implement this directive, my colleagues from that are working on the whole long implementation bill and even package, they told me that for now the ambition is to implement it in a way it will simply work, and also to reflect what the directive, the change that was that the directive went through, meaning they are planning to expand the definition of the guarantees of origin in order to modify them in a way that will include in our national legal order to be extended the range of types of energy sources for which the guarantees of origin may be issued will be extended. So guarantees of origin, apart from electricity, may also cover biomethane, hydrogen, heat, or cooling. But obvious, as I fully agree with Alexandru, this just mirroring the EU legislation will probably not be enough, because the more detailed legal framework and for guarantees of origin for hydrogen, this is something more than just a confirmation of a source that was used for hydrogen. This is an important instrument, and this is something we're still working on and trying to figure out how to address it. What I would really like you to encourage, therefore, is to keep an eye on what the ministry is doing next and the following month, because we are going to publish our hydrogen strategy project for the public consultation, and we will include the regulatory objectives and barriers that we want to address in our strategy and the actions that will follow. And we will provide a decent amount of time to give us any comments or thoughts that you would like to share with us to make it all better.
Thank you. The hydrogen strategy is something that I was about to ask. The strategy that was mentioned and announced by the minister Michał Kurtyka in June this year, and we wait for it for sure, and we will try to I hope it will not need any consultations, but I think we will take a part in some way. I would say. Thank you, Eva. And Mr. Jakub Kupecki, I would like to address your area of responsibility, which is quite similar to what we've been doing recently, but you were also a guest of the conference 2 years ago, I remember. Back then, you were taking part in the High Law project, right? And I mentioned it already during the introduction of Eva Mazur, but we've mapped the barriers within the Polish legal framework for hydrogen development and how to ease the industry would be able to use hydrogen in different areas of usage. But would you be able to tell us what is your experience from your perspective, and also what is because we've talked about that recently. The continuation of the High Law project was also the Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Observatory project, and you would also like to share with us some information from this project. So would you be able to give us some insight?
Yes, thank you. This is a very important question. First of all, thank you for inviting me and having the opportunity to speak during this important event, the third edition this year. So, High Law was actually something that reflects what Alexandru said in the beginning, that we have this pivotal role of hydrogen, which is not just a fuel, it's not a substrate energy carrier, it is like multifunctional component that we have to consider in transportation, in the chemical industries, in the power sector, in various applications. For that reason, HILO was the initiative. HILO stands for Hydrogen Law, an actual identification of the issues with handling hydrogen, with using hydrogen, with storage, with having a hydrogen mobility in different regions. And we tried to identify the bottlenecks and the problems which were present in different regions. HILO was a huge 2-year initiative with tens of partners. Hydrogen Europe as an association was a part of that activity, coordinating as a matter of fact. And we also focused on the Polish conditions at that time. So our experience, our team was very active in taking a dive into the existing description, the existing regulations that we have. And as a result, we saw what are the limitations and what are the gaps. So of course, HILO was not defining how to bridge the gaps, but it was rather an activity to identify what are the gaps and then reach out to the policymakers, to the industry, and let's say spread the news, what we really have to do. And I have to say that the rate of return, the feedback that we received during our workshops and the presentations, it was outstanding. We were contacted by a number of people following our activities. Then we got into a very tight collaboration with the ministry, providing some kind of reports and outputs of our project, with some thoughts on that. Obviously, we didn't define the direct actions that have to follow the project, which is over now, but it was rather a triggering point for discussing this with parties that are involved, the parties that are interested. And then, of course, going out of Poland, looking for some lesson learned that can be a direct examples how we can handle the problems. And as a matter of fact, I think those interactions were very helpful, that we brought a lot of experience from outside of Poland to the country, presenting some evidence how the issues can be addressed, how it can be handled with the regulatory framework and some dedicated bills. And finally, I can say that we started to think about so-called regulatory sandboxes, which are helping us to identify the definitions of hydrogen storage systems, hydrogen production, hydrogen as a fuel, hydrogen as an energy carrier, as a substrate, and so on and so forth. And then you mentioned the observatory, which is a huge activity at the European level. It was just launched a couple of weeks ago. It will be actually something way broader. It will help all the parties interested to look for solutions, look for some guidance, and providing also some expertise. We will be subcontracting a number of parties involved, also here in Poland. And for that reason, I can say that the HILO project was like a starting point, and the Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Observatory is something way broader with, I hope, a much bigger impact. So maybe Alexandra, you would like to add something to that statement of mine, but in general, I think that this is something huge happening.
No, you presented perfectly, Jakub. I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, we have actually started our work from your publication on the HILO project. We went a little bit further because aside from mapping the barriers, we also tried to find some propositions, and I tried to present them last year during the conference on the issues that we have within our Poland's legal framework. And we also this is what I addressed during my conversation with Eva Mazur, that we also tried to develop internally some ideas on how to meet those problems, meet those barriers, and how to change the law, how to change the legal framework to be more to be easier for the industry. And we have taken a broad approach because we went through all the legal acts, from the energy law and the electromobility law up to the excise tax law, actually. But the second question that comes to mind that I would like to ask you is, Jakub, is from your perspective, how Poland looks like. What's the place in Europe? What place in Europe Poland takes when it comes to advancement? I would say with hydrogen legislature, and there are some legal acts addressing the hydrogen issue, I would say. From your perspective, where are we now?
That's a very important and difficult question. I will try to answer in a short way. So we have a kind of reverse situation these days that the industry is investing in the technology. We are going for demonstration systems and then some piloting systems as well, but the legal definitions are missing. So my personal perspective is that we are seeking for a kind of interpretation, like on a case-by-case basis, trying to answer a question: is a power-to-X system, is it like a fuel production unit, or is it an energy system, or is it power plant, or something else? And the experience is rather good. I can say that so far we have had a couple of projects that were successful, are in course or in the initiation phase, and industry will lead the way in a way, pioneering and trying to indicate which directions are to be taken. And I think that this is important also what Eva Mazur mentioned, that the industry will play a critical role in kind of consulting the regulatory framework and the proper policies on that. And I think we should be optimistic about it.
Okay. Just one additional question for Alexandru, and this is something that popped up to me today, actually, because we are talking about certain element of the climate policy right now, but there are voices, some maybe not that loud voices, that hydrogen might be used by the fossil industry well, as a way to prevail, to fight the Green Deal, to fight the green revolution, I would say. Alexandru, would you be able to address that?
Yes. We have 195 members in Hydrogen Europe. 11% of those can be described as traditionally being fossil-based. So 90% of our members are not. This argument that fossil-based companies are hiding behind hydrogen to continue with their operation, I feel is misleading at best and hurtful at worst, because as I said in the beginning, we view the introduction of hydrogen as a key enabler to a decarbonized society, not a continuation of the status quo. My Secretary General always points to the fact that Ørsted, which is now the largest producer in Europe of renewable energy, used to be an oil and gas company. It used renewable energy to completely overhaul its operations. And if you see fossil companies, gas companies, oil and gas companies investing in hydrogen, it's because they see a way to reinvent themselves through a carbon-free energy vector. And I do not see a problem with that, if that's the case. But the goal is absolutely carbon neutrality and not a continuation of the status quo.
Thank you, Alexandru. We have a few questions from the audience at this point. Well, actually, two of them, and I think both of them are. I would have to ask Ms. Eva Mazur because one question is maybe more direct and will be easier to answer. The question is whether at this point the ministry, I think, the Ministry of Climate will be going to license the production of hydrogen because it might add an additional barrier, but it might add an additional regulatory barrier. That's what I understand. But also we need to remember that hydrogen might be quite dangerous for individuals. Do you have any idea would you be able to answer that question?
Well, for now, we are not intending to introduce an obligation of licensing for economic activities related to the hydrogen activities. Whether it is required now, it's something that we are honestly trying to identify ourselves together with our regulatory authority, being URE. So I think this is a short answer to that question. Whether when it comes to security, for this very reason, we are working on this future detailed regulations that will lay down all of the technical properties of everything to make sure it will be a safe infrastructure.
Thank you. And the second question, I think it is a little bit going up into the future. I think because well, I have to ask: will there be any limitations for households when it comes to renewable usage and hydrogen production for their own use? I'm now translating from Polish to English.
Yes.
And will there be any limits on hydrogen production? I assume this question regards the home production of hydrogen.
I will, honestly, I will be very happy to be in a situation where we have to consider this question of abundance of renewable energy and very high hydrogen production. For now, we're not planning to introduce any limitation of that kind. But I should make a disclaimer that I'm from hydrogen economy department, and this cannot reflect the views of our renewables colleagues, where the market is much different with our recent boom of photovoltaics.
Thank you. I would like to ask whether do we have any other questions? No. Okay. I think we've finished. We've closed the agenda for today's meetings. We are actually on time. So I would like to thank you everybody who attended. I would like to thank Eva, Alexandru, and Jakub.
Wir befinden uns hier vor unserem neuesten Produkt, dem Fronius Sol Hub. Das ist ein dezentraler Knotenpunkt für Sonnenenergie. Hier im Sollhub wird Sonnenenergie mittels Elektrolyse in Wasserstoff verwandelt. Der Wasserstoff kann dann für wasserstoffbetriebene Fahrzeuge abgetankt werden oder auch zum Beispiel im Winter rückverstromt werden und dann wieder in die Netze eingespeist werden. Dies ermöglicht Energiegemeinschaftsanlagen, Kommunen, Unternehmen, Logistikern, aber auch Landwirten, ihre eigene Sonnenenergie zur Erzeugung von Wasserstoff zu benutzen und mit diesem Wasserstoff emissionsfreie Logistik herzustellen.
From the very beginning, we feel the urge to move and discover the world. We walk, ride, drive, and travel. We're always on the move to learn, work, relax, keep fit, explore, and of course, to meet each other. When we can't, we confine our very nature. We depend on mobility for ourselves and for moving all those things we need and want in life. We've always been very ingenious when it comes to getting ahead faster, more safely, more reliably, and with greater comfort. Today, we need new solutions for new challenges. This is what drives us. This is why we're so passionate about mobility and always go that extra mile to move beyond what's possible today. We are pioneers in transportation, helping our customers keep the world in motion. As their trusted partner, we create ways to move people sustainably and seamlessly, from the first mile to the last. This is our vision. This is what we're moving toward and beyond.